John Hook's Newsmaker Saturday starts now.
Thanks for joining us on Newsmaker Saturday. Thanks to Christina Carilla for filling in while I was on some vacation time with my family, which was really, really nice to have. But I miss you all, and we're going to start off this week with Congressman Tom O'Halloran, District 1, first elected in 2016, re-elected in 2018 and 2020, but his district is changing. Tom O'Halloran is our guest on Newsmaker Saturday. Good to see you, Congressman.
Same here, John.
So your district goes from District 1 to a newly formed District 2. We're going to put up the map to show kind of the before and after. It looks pretty similar, but the geography's changed a bit. Can you describe what's happened to your district? Because you went from a district, the current one you're in, District 1, that President Biden won by almost 2 points, to a district now, District 2, your new district, that Donald Trump won by more than 8 percentage points. What happened?
Well, the part of the Tucson area that I used to have, I don't have anymore. Oro Valley, Marana, those are Oro Valley and Marana were Republican areas. Tucson obviously was more Democratic leaning. And then I picked up Prescott Valley, Chino Valley, and Payson, and some of the area down around Apache Junction, the Gold Canyon area.
Yeah, some of that is pretty conservative territory, so that's where it starts to tip the balance. I mean, in this environment, you keep hearing that this is going to be a really tough year for Democrats. Do you think you can hang on there?
I do. Our base knows me. The 2/3 of the district is my old district, and it's the part that leaves a little bit more Democratic. The other part of the district I represented in Arizona's first district in the legislature. I was a state representative and a state senator from that area.
And by the way, you were a Republican for much of that time.
I was, and I'm still Tom O'Halloran. And I still address issues as they should be, listening to people, working with people. You can go around my district right now and ask Democrats or Republicans, do I listen to them? Do I act in their benefit? And do I work within the needs of their communities? And the answer will be yes.
Is President Biden a drag on your candidacy?
Well, I don't know yet. We have a long ways to go. I think there's obviously issues like Title 42 that I disagree with him on. There's some other issues that I agree with him on. I think that all in all, there's a lot going on out there, that this is a different time and place, coming off a pandemic, coming into a nasty war on Ukraine, and addressing those issues, having China again closed down and the supply chain be impacted. Of course, and these have profound impacts across the entire globe. The president is doing an outstanding job in Ukraine and trying to address some of the core issues on energy here in the country. So it's hard. At the family table, it's a hard process. At the gas pump, obviously, things aren't going the best. But that's pricing on energy markets is a global process.
Congressman O'Halloran, the right track, wrong track numbers right now, 76% of Americans think we are on the wrong track. That is a dreadful number if you're an incumbent. That's not a good thing.
Well, it's not a good thing, but I don't run on I run on my district. That's where my constituency is at. That's the people that I help, and that's the history of what I've done since I've been in office, whether it's in the legislature or in Congress.
Let me ask you about. I know you're the communications guy with the Blue Dog Coalition. Blue Dog Democrats were kind of seen as centrists who were trying to find some common ground with Republicans. Is that a fair characterization?
It's very fair, and I'm the chair now of the Blue Dog.
You are the chair. Okay, so is there room for that right now? Because it seems like in Washington, it is so polarized. Can you still make plays with Republicans, or is it nearly impossible?
70% of my bills are either I endorse their bills, a Republican's bill, or they endorse my bill. In the Energy and Commerce Committee, we've had times just yesterday we came out of there with 7 votes on bills that were bipartisan, totally bipartisan on every member of the committee. I've been in that committee in the last 2 years where we came out of that committee with 50 and 28 or 29 votes that were unanimous votes within that committee. Of course we can. Now, does the rest of the political process work the same way as some of these committee systems do? I'm afraid that the American public doesn't see that enough. And all of a sudden it gets up into the political system where all the good work on a bipartisan level almost ceases. Yeah. I'm the 28th most bipartisan member of Congress.
Yeah, I looked at you on the voting.
Doing that for a while.
I think it was Project Vote Smart or one of these where it kind of puts you on a grid with dots, and you are pretty far to the right of the Democrats. So I mean, you're almost to the middle of the line, but at the same time, you've got the Republican National Committee putting out stuff on you saying that you vote with Nancy Pelosi 100% of the time. So which is it?
Well, I don't vote with the speaker 100% of the time, but I can tell you this, on a lot of the major issues where we need votes to move public policy and have that debate, whether it's in the House or in the Senate, we can't just sit there and argue back and forth with one another and say, let's not move policy. Yeah. We have to move that policy, and we see it time and time again. When we do get it moving, we have a discussion on it.
Let's talk about a couple of those, because we're almost halfway through our segment here. You mentioned Ukraine. You have voted for all of these packages, whether it's weapons or financial aid. What is our interest in Ukraine? Can you articulate what our national interest is in Ukraine?
Well, see, it's the entire underbelly of Europe. Europe is our they are our allies. They are our main source of our economic abilities within the world. They are people that will back us up in whatever adversary we end up with in China. It's important that we identify clearly that Putin is thinking in larger terms than just Ukraine. He has stated that himself, and we have to stop him somewhere, and I'd rather stop him there than having his submarines try to do something to America or other elements. And I think we're doing the right thing, and we've taken a leadership role in bringing Europe along with this process. So,
okay.
That's it.
You mentioned the economy, that people are having troubles in their own home, making ends meet. Let's talk about inflation. Fastest pace in 41 years. People are, I mean, we're at 8.6% inflation. We haven't seen anything like this, since the early days of Ronald Reagan, trying to frankly clean up the Carter years. I think that's a fair characterization. People are blaming the American Rescue Plan, that we dumped too much money into this economy and overheated it, printed too much money, and this is what's caused the inflation. In other words, there's really no other way for inflation to happen unless the government prints more money. That's exactly what we've done. Do you think we have mismanaged this?
We went into the pandemic and started passing bills across the entire spectrum for the entire pandemic on a bipartisan basis. There was almost universal approval on almost $7 trillion worth of spending. The reason is we wanted America to come out in front. And then when the president took over, he came out with the American Rescue Plan. And you take a look at what the American Rescue Plan has done, not just for our people that were being thrown out of homes or our businesses that were going under, that were still going under when that occurred.
Yeah, the question is, though, did we overshoot it?
The important thing here is what it's done to move our economy forward. We have the lowest unemployment rate. It's 3.2%. Arizona just came out. Theirs is at the lowest historic low. So there are pluses and minuses in this process, but we need to make sure that we stay in front of the rest of the world. And that's what we're doing.
Well, the problem is you've got China, Japan, and Switzerland, and they've faced all these same issues, but their inflation rate is half of ours. They're at about it's less than half. They're at about 2.5%. We're right now at 8.6.
Well, I'm not going to depend on anything China says about finances.
Well,
we have an inflation rate problem.
Switzerland
the world has an inflation
take
rate
Switzerland
problem.
and Japan. I mean, they just didn't print the money that we did, and it seems that we may have overshot it.
Well, when you have people dying, a million people die in your country, Your job is to make sure we try to save as many people as possible, make sure our economy comes out in front, and it has. China's economy is going the other way. Japan's economy has still not gotten back from the late 80s. We could have sat back and said, don't spend anything and let millions of people be thrown out on the street.
How much of this?
Allow the entire structure of our economy, our small businesses, to go under. That didn't happen in America. We had too many go under, but we still have businesses that are struggling.
How much of this had to do with energy policy, do you believe? In other words, there are people that feel that following the green energy thing has kind of backed us into a corner, causing these energy prices to really get out of control. And I mean, the fact is, as much as we would all love to see renewables right now are only 12% of what we rely on to keep this country running. I mean, we're just not there yet to say, hey, we're going to go all renewable. You can't do it. We're not going to do it in 50 years.
Well, first of all, I don't agree with you on the years maybe, but I do agree with you. It can't be done today. It can't be done 5-10 years from now. And the people that are producing that product know that also. And they have been unwilling to release or produce more oil. Natural gas, we are producing natural gas more than any other place in the world. And in the last year, we've continued to produce more and more. And next year, we'll produce another huge amount of natural gas and liquefied natural gas to export around the world.
Right, and our stuff is clean, by the way. Really clean. Our stuff is really clean. It's good quality.
It's great.
Yeah.
And that's why the rest of the world wants it, and that's why we want to sell it to them.
Hey, quickly,
go ahead.
Because we're motoring through this. let me ask you about Title 42. What do we do on the border? This situation is out of control. I know you disagree. You break with the Biden administration on whatever they're doing. What is your take on what we've got to do here?
Well, first of all, we have to secure our border. I believe that for all along. Secondly, we have to make sure that we put in place a plan that will work. You know, I look back to 2013 and when the bill passed the House, the Senate, a supermajority, and the House wouldn't even hear that bill in 2013. Now, come on, I'm sorry, but that is terrible. We should have a secure border now. It had money in for the border. It had security in for the border, more Border Patrol agents, more immigration officials, more court systems that are part of the problem. But the border must be secure. End of story.
Congressman?
That's why when I keep writing letters back to the Homeland Security Secretary, I still don't get the appropriate answer back. And when I've been down there, I talk to the personnel down there, and they tell me right straight out that, in fact, I was just down there a month ago, and as we left an area, people were crossing the border, and they're only able to catch 1 out of 2.
That's
so
exactly
50%.
right. That's exactly right. Congressman, I have asked everybody on this program that I can think to ask what the administration is thinking with this kind of non-policy where the door's been kind of flung wide open. What is the goal here? Why are they doing this? I don't understand it. It's almost willful.
Well, there's a humanity problem down there. There's a problem, obviously, that we do not recognize that this core element down there, there's a lot of poverty down there, but that poverty is putting pressure on us. But there's also, we have to look at that into the future. I don't want China to have the type of power it has. I'd rather have that business over in America first, Canada, Mexico, anywhere but China. I don't want a supply chain that's going to be controlled by an adversary, whether it's China, Russia, India, all of these elements that are backing in one way or another Russia right now. And so we want to bring these businesses back. We are bringing these businesses back. We're becoming the chip manufacturing center of the world. 2 more plants of Intel in Arizona, 1 more plant from Taiwan, 8 more plants in the eastern side of the country, and other European countries are building chip plants. We want to take these markets back and control our destiny.
Final thing. What is it that your voters are saying is job one for Tom O'Halloran? What are they coming to you and saying, look, you've got to fix this? What is it?
If I don't say inflation, I'd be nuts. But we can only have so much control over the Federal Reserve. So the second thing is we have to make sure that long term we find a way to, pay for what you're going to do, one way or the other. You either look at the corporations and say to the corporations, you're not participating in this process right now in order to make sure that inflation doesn't go out of control, and you still want the tax break and for us to work with you, whether you're the energy sector who gets tens of billions of dollars a year and is refusing to produce more oil in our own country, or whether it's the other corporations that say, well, I want to pay zero tax, which a lot of them have over the last number of years. We all need to come to the table, Americans, and work together to overcome this, because this is a dangerous world, and we have to make sure that our adversaries are weaker than we are. And part of that is to make sure that we're the strongest in every sector that we possibly can be, and the energy sector is one of those.
It's good to see you again. Congressman Tom O'Halloran, District 1 in Arizona, but now running for the newly created, almost similar, District 2. But
it's 10,000 square miles larger.
Oh, great. So your travel is going to be even more fun trying to cover the district. It's not easy.
You got it, Jan. Thank you very much.
Congressman, thank you. Tom O'Halloran.
I know.
When we come back on Newsmaker Saturday, we're going to be joined by an old friend, Chuck Coughlin, one of the guys here in this town that knows the political scene. We're going to kind of ask Chuck what's going on in some of these races, some of these districts, including Tom O'Halloran's, when we come back on Newsmaker Saturday. Welcome back on Newsmaker Saturday. Pleased to bring into the program an old friend and a guy who knows his way around the political ring in Arizona. Chuck Coughlin. He's the CEO of High Ground Political Consulting Firm. He knows this stuff well. Chuck, good to see you.
Great to see you again, John. Thank you for having me.
Okay, first thing, we just had Tom O'Halloran on, Congressman O'Halloran. He's been in one of these kind of tight districts, but it's lean Democrat. Now he moves into a new district because of the census. The new District 2 is not as favorable to him as the old district. You know, District 1, as I mentioned to Congressman O'Halloran, went with Biden. District 2 went for Trump by almost 9 points. So is he in any danger in your view?
He's got name ID in the whole district, John. He's worked hard in that entire district. As you can see, it's bigger than most states on the map there. And so he's well regarded. He's a centrist Democrat. It's going to be a hard race, though, depending on his Republican opponent. The incumbent, he's an incumbent, so he'll do well. But it's certainly a race to watch in Arizona come November.
Okay, let's just take a quick glance at the governor's race in Arizona. You've got Karen Taylor Robson trying to make up ground on Kari Lake, who has tremendous name ID. Has she done that? And is this race up for grabs, or is Kari Lake probably still the favorite?
No, you'd have to say Lake's still the favorite. She's leading in the polls. Karen and Matt have been chasing her from the get-go. It seems to appear, as we start to tilt towards early ballots being mailed the first part of July, that it's tightening up. So Karen has closed the gap, but she's still down. There's no doubt in my mind she's still underwater with Lake. But the curious thing there, John, is that Lake's numbers haven't moved. They haven't moved from the time that she entered the race, was endorsed by Trump. She still sticks around that 35% range, suggesting that that's maybe a ceiling for her. So the question is there enough other votes there that can be divided of that 70% of the electorate that can be attracted to one of those candidates, whether Salmon or Taylor Robson, to be able to, go by that 35% number. I suspect there is. I suspect it's going to tighten up as we head down the line here. Robson's spending a lot of money on the race. She has a lot of money to spend, and we're going to see an airway war take place here. And I would suspect this one going down to the wire.
Chuck, is a Donald Trump endorsement a cinch lock that you're probably going to win if you get it?
No, it's not. We've seen that across the country, John. We saw that in Georgia. We've seen it in Nebraska. We've seen it in Idaho. The Trump endorsement, depending on where you are and what the case of the electorate is not a lock. In fact, look at the Blake Masters race, the Senate race in Arizona that he just got it. That's still a neck and neck race across the board. So it is not. It certainly helps. It certainly helps with that portion of the electorate that identifies as a Trump voter, but it is not a lock in a Republican primary.
Who presents more challenges for Katie Hobbs in a general election out of that field?
My guess is it'd be Taylor Robson because she appeals to a wider segment of the electorate, businesswoman, business background, and a credible family background in terms of politics. Her dad was a Senate president back in the day. Her brother was a county supervisor back in the day. She's a rather well-known quantity. She's a more well-rounded business candidate that can speak to a variety.
Could attract more independent voters is what you're getting at here?
I mean, you hit it right on the head. In order to win a general election in Arizona, you have to win unaffiliated voters. So what we anticipate in this cycle is about 42% Republicans, 34% Democrats, and 24% other. So no one party can win a race. You have to appeal to that crossover vote, particularly unaffiliated voters, if you're going to win a general election. And I would think that Robson would do better with that audience than a late candidacy.
Okay, this OH Predictive Insights poll that came out at the beginning of the month says that Senator Mark Kelly is hovering at a 50% approval rating, and they are determining that race is a dead heat, that any Republican is going to give him trouble, potentially. Who will that be, do you believe?
You know, it's hard to say right now. That's a horse race right now with Jim Layman, who got out to an early lead, spent a lot of money. He's invested a lot of money with the Republican Party as it is in Arizona right now. You got Mark Brnovich, who's won 2 statewide races as an incumbent attorney general, but has struggled because of the election issues with part of the Republican primary electorate. And then you got Blake Masters, who's from Tucson and who has a bunch of money from Peter Thiel, an independent businessman, and he most recently secured the endorsement of Trump as well. And so it's a neck and neck race. It's weird, though, John, having a Republican from Tucson. It's just not a thing that the electorate is used to. He does not, Masters doesn't have a deep reservoir of support in Maricopa County. He's working on that. But Layman's ground game is probably better up here. Brnovich has a statewide name ID, and as I said, has won 4 statewide races. And so it's a neck. It's going to be a horse race down to the wire.
Yeah. Is this, this has been described as a year that's going to be dreadful for Democrats, and it's going to be a Republican year. Do you see it as that cut and dried, that it's going to be some red tsunami?
It could be if Republicans stop shooting themselves in the foot. As I said, you got to make ground up with that unaffiliated part of the electorate. And, this discussion about the election, the whether or not Biden's our president, that's not a good election narrative, a general election narrative for the Republicans to hold on to. It's not a majority winner. And on the other side, you have the Democrats playing identity politics and all the kind of things that offend Republican voters. And so it's almost as if who's going to, you get into the sports analogies, who turns the ball over the most. We saw last night the Celtics turn the ball over the most. They lose the game. It's like which party doesn't turn the ball over the most,
shoot themselves in the foot
in November.
Yeah. Okay. Chuck Coughlin, great to see you, and we're going to have you back. Plenty. I promise you.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure being here.
Good seeing you, Chuck. We're back in a minute on Newsmaker Saturday. Thanks, as always, for spending some of your weekend with us here on Newsmaker Saturday. We appreciate it. We will see you next week on Newsmaker Saturday.